Yes. MX Unleashed, man. That intro gets me pumped every single time. I'm sorry you guys couldn't actually hear the real music due to DMCA bullshit. That's YouTube. But it's just this game, ATV Unleashed, or ATV, I think it was Unleashed. It was one of those, Off-Road Fury or something like that. Those games, man, they all made my childhood and pretty much molded the music taste that I listen to today. I'm a metalhead, I'm a rocker, whatever you want to call me. I love all type of new metal and heavy rock and metalcore and all that stuff. And I think a lot of that has to do with this game, or these games, I should say, because the original MX Unleashed, it really just paved the way for sports games in general. I was never really into like Madden or NBA or those kind of games growing up, but man, the MX Unleashed games, and again, the ATV Off-Road Fury, those were the games that I was into. So let's just jump into a regular freestyle for a bit. We're just going to drive around a level just to kind of get my taste for the game, because it's been a very long time since I've played this. Machine 1, I don't know what any of this means. I'm just going to say, let's do it. So you can customize your rider a little bit, or you can choose a pro character, which is kind of cool. Let's see what bikes we have unlocked at the beginning. I remember you don't have a whole lot to begin with, but we have a couple to choose from. Nice. Suzuki, always a good choice. THQ. I always used to go with the Rainbow Studios because it's blue, but obviously it's like, I don't know. I don't think it really matters. Pretty much every car has the same feeling, from what I remember in the game. Some of them obviously will have different stats if you're really into the physics and winning every race, but from what I remember, these games were not very difficult. They were pretty easy. I mean, as like a 12-year-old boy playing these games, and again, this is somebody that does not race IRL. I don't know anything about bikes or quads or anything. I just loved the soundtrack and the graphics, and I liked going to the edge of the level and getting shotgunned back into the game, if you know what I'm talking about. That was the stuff that I really liked and messed around with. So I wasn't really in for it for the racing in particular, but I remember not having much issues at all with winning the championships and getting through the story mode. In there, you know, story mode. There's not really a story mode in the game, but it gets you through it, and it's still fun to play through. So we're just going to create our character real quick, and let's get into it. I absolutely hate that I have to turn the music off in-game, because again, this soundtrack was absolutely insane. I'll put some of the bands and songs on the screen here of the soundtrack in this game. You guys can just see for yourselves like how good it was back in the day. Back off, I'll take you on. Headstrong, I'll suck off anyone. I do not remember what I'm doing. I don't know how to play. Oh, I already died. Man, the ragdoll physics were glorious. Any game that had ragdoll physics, automatic W for me. And yeah, we had the, I think this was the first game. Maybe Off-Road Fury was first, but it was between these three games, or two games, that they had this preload system where you go to the bottom of a jump, you hold back on the analog stick, and then you slap it forward at the top of the jump to get massive air. And it gave a little extra control to the character as well that I really enjoyed, for being able to, you know, move around in the air to land perfectly and not land awkwardly and fall off your bike in a race to make it a critical loss or anything like that. I know in future iterations of these games, like, what was it, MX Reflex, they really, in my opinion, went overboard with the physics engine and really messed around with some of the controls to where it just became very frustrating to play and just not enjoyable. I might be in the minority with that opinion, but that's genuinely how I felt, and I hated it. Also, I am emulating this, and in case you didn't know, that's probably why some of the graphics look a little different than you may remember. It is being upscaled in 4K. And also, you can see on the edges of the display, I don't know why the game's kind of like glitching out a little bit. It's probably just the emulator. Not every game runs perfectly with them, sadly, but at least the game is running it all. I'm able to play it, and this is exactly how I remember it feeling. But yeah, in freestyle mode, you're just driving around these giant open levels, trying to get as much points as possible, or doing these little side missions, which are those big glowing areas, as you can see. See if we can actually land a trick here, the catwalk. There we go, beautiful. Try a different one, the flatliner. But yeah, dude, landing tricks in these games took a little bit of skill to get used to, and you had to know when to let go in time where you would fall, because this is a very unforgiving game in terms of its crashing. But it's so fun to crash because of the ragdoll physics that I never really got frustrated by it. I think a lot of new games kind of fall away from that, where they just want to punish you, and it's not satisfying or fun. It's just kind of like, Wow, okay, cool. I guess moving on. But these games, I never minded it. You know, it was kind of fun getting wrecked, if you will. Oh, okay. I don't know what happened there. He just gave up at the top of the hill. Yeah, these levels are a lot bigger than I remember, too. You know, it's a PS2 title, so graphically it's not going to be the most gorgeous game. You don't see a lot of grass textures or anything like that, but it got the job done. I think the animations are actually really well done, too. I like the way the guy... Like, he's very fluid, you know? He moves pretty well, like real life. I like the vehicles as well. I think those look pretty good, pretty decent. And again, the ragdoll effects really adds to some realism with the game as well. And then not only that, but with MX Unleashed, they not only have of course, the dirt bikes, but you can also drive monster trucks and airplanes and dune buggies and a ton of other stuff they showcase in the intro. And granted, they're fun. They are interesting. They add a little bit extra gameplay, of course. But if I'm being honest, I don't remember much as a kid enjoying those missions or playing with those vehicles. I just wanted to get back on an MX bike and do tricks. Because that's the biggest catch, I think, to these games, is being able to do the tricks. And obviously, you can't really do that stuff in a monster truck. So in my opinion, it was more of a gimmick than anything, but I can understand if people sought after these games strictly just for those abilities to be able to do all that in one game. I do get that. And then in future iterations, like my favorite in the series, MX vs. ATV Unleashed, that is the one where, of course, they brought in the ATVs and a lot of other vehicles, and I just think they perfected the formula. And the maps, from what I remember, the tracks felt way better. The game had a little bit more challenge to it, so it wasn't just like I could fall asleep and still win the races kind of feeling to it. Soundtrack was still a banger. I don't know if it was as good as this game, but it was pretty close. And I think even graphically it had a little bit of a step up, even though it still wasn't the same, same system, PS2. But yeah, MX vs. ATV I think was my favorite in the series, but I wanted to come back to the original MX Unleashed, because I think this is the one most people remember as a kid, or they think of when they think of these MX games. And I think because of and I know I called it kind of a gimmick earlier, but I do genuinely think because of the quote-unquote gimmick of being able to drive monster trucks and other vehicles in this game, I think that's what really set it apart from ATV Off-Road Fury. Because you could make the argument that, like, they are different in general because one's on an ATV and one's on a dirt bike, but in my opinion, there's really not much of a difference. It feels genuinely the same. It almost feels like the same graphic engine as well. And I could be wrong, but I think both were made by THQ, so it makes sense why they would feel a lot alike. But I think MX just took the cake because of those added features of the extra vehicles and stuff like that, just adding more to the game. And even Off-Road Fury had a banger soundtrack too, so I don't want to discredit that either. But yeah, let's go check out a race, and we'll give you some of the gameplay of that as well compared to the freestyle mode. And here we are, into the race finally. In my opinion, this is the meat of the entire game. I know the freestyle mode is probably what most people remember, just messing around with a giant level and doing tricks. But I think the racing is actually really well done and pretty well crafted and a lot of fun, even if it is on the easier side from what I remember. But yeah, so you're going against AI characters, of course. There was no multiplayer at this point, or online multiplayer. I think it had 2-player split screen, so you could play with a buddy if you wanted to. And that was always a lot of fun, playing with my older brother growing up. But other than that, like, yeah, you're pretty much stuck going against the AI. And the AI can be hit or miss. Sometimes in later matches, they can be pretty hard. And then in the very early ones, they're just incredibly dumb and easy. And as you can see, sometimes they'll fall, which is hilarious. Or you can land on top of them and knock them off their bike, which is even funnier. But it's really all about getting that preload perfectly. So the more laps you do, the better you'll get at the map and knowing when to land. Like, that was way too big of a jump. Could have been very dangerous, but we survived. And then if you want, you can do some tricks, but it's really not risk. It's not worth it. It's not worth the risk, in my opinion, because that happens, just like that guy. You don't want to be that dumbass. You want to survive. So yeah, as long as you learn the ways of the levels, go through a lot of the laps. I think this is a 4-lap race. It's the one I chose here, but most of them are 5 laps. So by the time you get to the 3rd lap, you usually have the map pretty much memorized and you know what to do. It's fun even coming back to it right now. I mean, graphically, it's not outstanding. It's not blowing me away or nothing. And I'm listening to my own music in the background that I have muted because of DMCA. But it's one of those things, like, if you just put on some Spotify tunes or listen to the actual in-game soundtrack, you're going to have a banging time, dude. It really gets you in the mood to race. So they are staying with me. I did set the difficulty to the highest of whatever that means. So I was kind of hoping they would stick with me. I didn't want to just be a one-man show here and be way ahead of everybody. So this is awesome. This is actually what I would expect from a racing game, especially an MX game. Oh, that was bad. Bad preload. Saved it, though. We're good. There we go. Cut into second. Can we cut to first? There we go. Fighting this guy in first here. Oh, almost T-boned me, but we're good. Saved it. See if we can jump this. Race cam. Oop, I accidentally changed my camera mode. That's fine. Get a little bit closer to the car. So there was different camera modes, it looks like. Got slot cam, helmet cam. That's just Barf City. And then you have your regular race cam, which is the one I clearly stay with. I think it's the best one. Yeah, there we go. No preload. That was the way to do that one. Because it can be a benefit. Sometimes it can be a detractor. Depends on the timing and when you're using it. We're keeping this lead, though. This is looking good. There we go. We got it. Hell yeah, dude. That was pretty fun. And that, again, that was on the hardest difficulty. But still, I felt like they stayed with me the most of the time. And I was honestly in like 3rd, 4th place most of the race. But, man, yeah, this game still holds up all these years later, dude. If you've never played an MX Unleashed game or MX vs. ATV Unleashed or even the ATV Offered Fury games, man, I cannot recommend them enough. They are so much fun. Even to come back to it to this day, I would honestly stay away from the new ones. The new ones might look more flashy and pretty with their graphics, but they just completely ruin the physics, in my opinion. They ruin the way the game feels and plays. If they just would have kept it the same control scheme, I think it would have sold way better. I think these games would still have a huge following. But because of that, they really just kind of fell off, in my opinion. So, it is what it is, but hey, that's gaming, right? And thank you so much for watching this episode of Do You Remember of MX Unleashed? If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to leave a like, share, support as always, and comment below what game you'd like me to check out in the future. And if I end up choosing your game, I might give you a shout out in a future video. So with that, have a good one, everybody. Peace out.